Okay, I would like to get a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam Chair, members of the board, you need to make an agenda change. I recommend that we move the executive session 6 to after discussion item A.
Okay, can I get a motion to move section 6 to after 2A?
Madam Chairman, I move that we amend the agenda as presented by the superintendent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so to our action items, personnel.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we have one item of personnel. I recommend that you approve the resignation of Sarah Walk, music teacher at Aspen.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the resignation of Sarah Walk?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, item B, second reading policy GCBD, professional staff leave and absences.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I recommend that you approve GCBD at second reading. This deals with our leave policy. It's an update of current policy and puts it in line with our staff handbook.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve policy GCBD, professional staff leave and absences?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next, second reading policy GCBDA, professional staff leave and absences, vacate.
And Madam Chair, we really need to vote on this, just to let you know that this will be vacated. Basically, there were two policies dealing with leave. We don't need a vote. The one just described short-term leave, didn't make any sense, so we'll vacate that policy, GCBDA, and stick with the other one that's easier to say. So it's not really voted on, I just wanted to make sure that they're put into one.
Okay, next up, approve bus lease.
Madam Chair, members of the board, last time we met, I was directed to go out for bid for a 5-year bus lease. And so we received, as you see, 6 bids came in. Kaiser, which is a Wyoming company, came in at 1.95%, which is a very good rate. And so I ask that you approve of the 5-year bus lease for the buses that have already showed up. So,
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve the bus lease?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the bus lease as presented by John.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, section 4, discussion items, the 2017 audit presentation and approval.
John, do you want to introduce the gentleman, or come on up, guys? You're welcome to.
Is it supposed to go up here?
Up front, or you guys want the podium?
This works just fine.
okay, let's.
Was it
So-
after this one?
Okay, so as required by state law, we have had an audit of our finances. With us today is Dave DeCoria out of DeCoria, Michael and Teague. Phil Tippett and Mike Burton. So I'll turn the time over to Dave.
Okay. Okay. Madam Chairman and the board, thank you for allowing us to meet with you tonight. I believe for the last several years we've actually done this remotely, and we now are located at least partially here in Evanston. These two young gentlemen actually have both purchased houses here, and if I can get the owner of some land out north of town to drop her price, I hopefully will be here soon as well. So anyway, we appreciate being here in person tonight. My presentation, this is certainly not a science presenting to a board of trustees. On financial statement information, it's generally not considered that interesting, though we would suggest otherwise. And lots of times, or many times, we just get lost in the minutia if we get too deep. And so I had a superintendent about 10 years ago tell us what our carryover is, how much money we have in the bank, whether we had any findings, and sit down. I won't be quite that quick, but I won't be much longer, okay? And we will move on to other things that I'm sure individuals are more interested in. But like John said, this is a state law, and we appreciate the opportunity to be your auditors. We actually audit all of the school districts in Uintah County now, and Lincoln One and Sweetwater and a couple others in the middle part of the state as well. So we feel we have a pretty good understanding of school districts. Having said that, we also get to see business managers and how they operate. And I happen to be lucky enough to be here auditing the first year John came in as your business manager. And without being too glowing, to see the change that he's made from the day he walked in the door to now is just incredible. And I think that's because he loves accounting, believe it or not. I think John truly would like to sit and just talk about accounting if he could. And I think that makes him a fantastic business manager because he does enjoy what he does. And he's to be commended. Management's discussion analysis, I forgot the name of it. Managed discussion and analysis, it'll be on page 4 through 17, is prepared by John. And we don't have many governmental agencies, and we audit counties and we audit cities and, like I said, a lot of school districts. We don't have many that actually prepare this document right here. If you don't prepare it, it requires about a 2-sentence paragraph in the auditor's report, and we just say it wasn't prepared. But John does a fantastic job in preparing this. Now, again, he prepared it. We've reviewed it. The numbers all agree with our financial information back in the financial statements. So a lot of what we talk about here will actually be in John's discussion and analysis because it provides prior year and current year information where ours just provides current year information. Okay, let's go to page, if we could go to, now my understanding is you have had these financial statements. Let me ask first, do we have any questions specifically that we want to discuss?
We read it all. We know.
Well, then I'll close. Thank you.
Carry over.
Superintendent Thomas was right with us on that. The independent auditors report on page, let's see, 1 through 3, I believe it is. That, along with a couple reports in the back, one on the internal controls related to your financial information and your internal controls related to your single audit, they're mine. John, if he wants to, can put any numbers he wants to in the financial statements. He can say you have $15 million in cash, and I can't make him change that number. What I would do in my report is say, except for the $15 million, which we disagree with in cash, the numbers are fairly stated, okay? So this is our report. They changed this a few years ago, and they spell out very clearly on page 1, management's responsibility. It's management's responsibility to actually give us the numbers. And amazingly as that sounds, and as simple as that sounds, we don't walk into many organizations where the numbers are given to us. Generally, we have to create a lot of the numbers, and then we have to audit the numbers. And when we do that, we have to put a report in the back. You don't have that situation. We walk in the door, the numbers are prepared, and we get to do our job, which is audit those numbers. So that's the first thing to note. You know something? If that wasn't the case, I'd have to go the other way. So he's keeping those prices down for you, and we appreciate that. On page, we do have a good time. On page 2, this is where we state our opinion. And we say, in our opinion, these financial statements are materially correct. Now, materially, what does that mean? I think it's important to point that out because for different organizations, it's a different thing. For your financial statements, for the entity as a whole, that's all of your sports, your classrooms, your lunch, your insurance fund, everything together. Your financial statements could be misstated by $290,000, and they would still be considered materially correct. Now, would I ever issue a set of financial statements that I thought were off by $290,000? No, I wouldn't. It just that just doesn't work with me internally. But that's materiality. That with an organization your size, with revenue this year of approximately $40 million, they say that you could be off by 290, and it would still be materially correct because of that $40 million number. It's a big number, okay? So understand that when we don't audit to black and white down to the penny, down to the dollar, but we get a heck of a lot closer than $290,000, okay? So remember that as we go through these tonight. The first thing I would like to talk about is on page 18. And again, I'm going to hit the high points because I'm assuming that you have reviewed these to some. I don't believe you went every page. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to call you on that one. But I have. And several other people in the firm have read these item for item, all 60-some, 70 pages. It's important to look, I think, at your ability to operate the school if you stop getting money from the state. That's not going to happen. You've got assets, current assets of approximately $13 million, okay? You've got current liabilities. That's liabilities that are expected to be paid within the next year of $6.6 million, okay? And you've got total liabilities of yeah. Well, and I'm taking your pension out of that because I don't believe the pension you're going to ever have to pay that. I mean, it's informational. We provide it because it is your liability. But do we ever think the state is going to say, geez, we're not going to take any more of your money, we're going to pay what we can, and you don't know, you're right. And we will talk very quickly about the pension in about the next 5 minutes and then not much more after that. But if you take the pension out of it, your assets minus your current liabilities and your non-pension long-term liabilities, you have $4.5 million, okay, left over. So you could operate, you could pay all of your liabilities and you still have $4,500,000 of money left over, okay? So you're in a healthy position current asset-wise, okay? On page 19, looking down the left column at the bottom, 3 from the bottom, change in net position is a negative 2,000,008. Okay? Does everybody see that? Okay. Now, that is everything including depreciation, which is a non-cash item showing how much your buildings are losing in value, is kind of what that means. And then you also had a loss on disposition of some capital assets of $250,000. So you really had a cash, if you would like to, a cash positive net income for the district-wide this year of about $881,000. Okay? So you operated in the black this year on a cash flow standpoint as a district. Okay? On the page 62 and 63. No, 61 and 62. Excuse me. This is where we're talking about the net pension liability. And, you know, when we first put this in, well, let's go back. If anybody's been around for 12, 13 years, we used to have financial statements that were, I don't know, 30 pages rather than 70 pages. And then they started building up, and they made us, we didn't report on your capital type assets in the past. All we talked about was cash, accounts receivable, and your accounts payable and your payroll liabilities and things like that. Then they made us go back and hire. Most people hired a firm out of Boise, but we had to come back and we had to evaluate. We had to put a value on all of your capital assets, all of your building, all of your land, all of your equipment, and we did that. And at the time, I went and apologized to every one of my clients and said, this is ridiculous, we shouldn't be doing this. 15, 12, 10 years later, and it actually was a phase-in, so it depends on your size. Now it's just part of reporting, and I think it's very important that we include all that information about your capital assets. So someday maybe I will understand why they're having us report on your pension liability. Today I'm not sure I do, except I think it's important that you understand how the people that are managing your pension assets are doing, because that is important to you. In the first year that they had us report, and that was 2015, the pension liability was funded at about 79%. Okay, that means 20 to 21% of the liability to pay off everybody's pension into the future. We were 20% short on that, and we're talking billions of dollars. Okay, in 2016, we increased the amount that we were paying by 0.5%, and the unfunded portion grew to 27%. Okay, we went backwards even though the school districts were paying more money in. This last year, we sat at 73.42% versus 73.4%, and that's on page 61, far right column. Okay, we didn't pay any extra in. It's 16.62%. 16.62% with the employee and the employer portion of paid into the retirement fund, and we didn't lose any value. So whoever's managing the fund did a better job this year, and we sat equal, I guess. We didn't make progress, we didn't lose position. So that's something I think as a district of your size, where it is such a large part of your budget, that's something you watch, and it rolls back uphill, I think, in this case. You know, if they're not managing that, then they need to do a better job, because you're paying a lot of money into it. And that's what I have to say on the pension liability. Let's go to your client compliance reports on page 70. Okay. This is where we talk about your internal controls. Your internal control. When we do the audit, not only are we looking at the numbers to say, geez, do we think the numbers that John and his staff are reporting are correct? But we also have to look and say, do they have controls in place and how well are they functioning? Okay? Now, you did receive in the past several findings per year. It's down to one finding last year and this year, okay? And it's the segregation of duties findings. And I'll tell you, I will be looking really close next year to make sure that you still deserve that finding. I'm not so sure that you do. But because this is my first year to report to you, I'm glad it's still here. Because I call the segregation of duties finding my board finding, okay? And I actually was in reporting to a school district, and I got waylaid on this one, and he said, why do you keep putting this in there? We hear it every year. He said, I think it's and this is quoting, I think it's a CYA comment, okay? And I was like, I didn't know what to say. So I got out of it, and I talked to some of my colleagues, and we really started looking at it, and I thought, no, wait, that's the wrong way of looking at this. What this is saying to the board is you can't rely on the internal checks that you have. So when you get information on a monthly basis, you really do have to look at it. You have to read it. You have to look at who are you paying checks to? Who aren't you paying checks? Well, no, that's not. How much are you paying these folks? If I'm a board member and we pay we pay money to a vendor that I haven't seen before, because you're a very consistent organization that's been around a long time, I would probably ask John, what are we buying from these people? And he comes back and says, well, they gave us a fantastic deal on paper, so we bought a bunch of it. Okay, he's answered your question. It's that quick. Or if you've got somebody that's generally spend $5,000 with, and all of a sudden it goes to 50, I'd be saying, geez, John, what happened this month on these people? That's as much as we're not asking you to dig in and really grill, but look at things that don't make sense, things that are new. And that's the board's responsibility. You are ultimately the people that are responsible for the fiscal operations of the district, okay? So if that goes away next year, I'm not going to give you that speech, but I did this year, okay? And that's why it's important that it's in there. This year, we audited for the single audit, which you know what that is. That's your federal programs where we go in and we don't look so much at the numbers, but we look at the operations, the controls that you have in place to make sure that you're spending the money the way the federal grant intends it to be spent. That's what they're relying on us to check. We checked you. We looked at your special education cluster, which includes your regular SPED program plus your SPED preschool. Okay, we had 0 findings. We looked at 40 items. All 40 items were approved. They were for the correct item. They were charged against the correct expense type. What other things do we look at to make sure that it's within the requirements of the grant? And again, we also look at approvals, because we don't want to stay in compliance because we got lucky. We want to stay in compliance because we're good, and we have controls in place to make sure that we're good. Okay? That's pretty much my presentation. If you're going to spend time anywhere in these financial statements, I would truly spend them in page 4 through 18. That's John's section. Again, it provides an overview and compares current year against the prior year. The financial statements that we prepare, that's the one thing that I don't like about them, is they don't provide a comparison between years. And so you get a single year. So what does $12 million in current assets mean to you? Well, you only had 10 last year, so it means you grew by 2 million. Well, you can't see that. You really didn't. That's just but excuse me, I'm getting cotton mouth now. Thank you very much. In John's section, you would see the difference between the prior year and the current year cash. Plus, he talks about stuff like your growth of your ADM or decline or growth. So there's a reason that maybe your funding from the state went down. Your ADM went down by 400 students. Stuff like that. He provides that very important reading. To anybody here that wants to look at the financial statements, look at John's section. Very well done. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
No, as always, you do a great job.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Madam Chair, members of the board, we recommend that you approve the audit that was just presented.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the audit as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion
Thank you.
passes. Thank you.
Good night.
And we need a motion to go into executive session for student services.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have to have any discussion?
So,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
You should be very. Unless you guys ask one question.
How are you? Why, thank you. And then they're like, what? And what God? So. Possibly do worse. I had to quit coaching volleyball soccer. I was just like, I can't do this. She doesn't listen to me. She talks. She's no. Those new girls, and she's I don't feel like it. I think this last year I was like, I'm done. I'm not coaching anymore. Goes with bells, but yeah, that's cool. Deb is calling for him. Think that he called me for us to try to get me to give him money for some of the Right. Either way, give us money. Same thing with the wetlands. Good, how are you, Chris?
Sheila.
Yeah.
Bella pretty excited.
Yes. Yeah, she was.
She didn't miss either.
No, last year she missed.
Did she miss
Last year she missed and she was hostile mad about it. So she was bound and determined to not miss this year.
Pretty fired up for a while. She missed. I got the evil eye staring me down before she threw it. She's awesome.
Sounds about right.
Were you there? I didn't
No.
see much.
No, I wasn't there. I watched video of it on Facebook last night, yeah. Yep. Last year she practiced in the school systems. For
Do we have a copy of the physical, I haven't looked at the
At the what?
physical therapy in board docs. I didn't see it.
I can't get it.
No, we don't have it in there,
What's that?
the physical therapy.
Oh, it's not in there. Okay, she didn't get it. That's what I was wondering. Yes, then I moved a motion to come back into the regular executive session for student services.
Okay. So are we ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so do I have a motion to come back into regular session out of executive session for student services?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, for our discussion items, we're going to go to board resolutions.
And Madam Chair, members of the board, there's actually a couple resolutions. The first ones we want to talk about, while we can still vote on them, deal with Wyoming School Board's resolutions that we take to Wyoming School Board. And you should find them in the packet. One of them deals with statute 214302, which is compulsory attendance. And I'll just read this if it's okay and explain why. This was a resolution we approved last year and the year before, but it was never considered by the state legislature. So it was adopted by Wyoming school boards, but never made it far enough. So whereas school attendance is vital to a student's academic success, and whereas state statute 214302 allows enrollment in the first grade in the year in which his 6th birthday falls on or before September 15th, and whereas the current requirement for compulsory attendance is age 7, and whereas many first grade students turn 7 after September 1st of their first grade year, and whereas compulsory attendance statutes for first grade students who turn 7 after September 15th have no effect and cannot be enforced. What that means is if a student turns 7 and they're in their first grade year, we cannot enforce any of the compulsory attendance laws until they finish that first grade year. Okay, so this is what the resolution is. Be it resolved that the Wyoming School Board Association supports a change to the state statute 214102, adding the words "or during their first grade year" to the statute to read, every parent, guardian, or other person having control or charge of any child who is a resident of this state and whose 7th birthday falls on or before September 15th or during their first grade year of any year and who has not yet attended his 16th birthday, and then the statute goes on. The reason why that's important is because then the compulsory attendance laws will take effect during their first grade year. You know what the studies show about attendance. Typically, attendance patterns are developed between their kindergarten and 2nd grade year. If we can't hold parents accountable that first grade year, it hurts our students. We approached it this way instead of changing the age from 7 to 6, because that seems to be a real sticking point out there. The whole idea of wording it this way is so if they enroll in their first grade year, they need to attend. Like I said, I was disappointed it never made it to the floor last year. The Wyoming School Boards did adopt it as one of their resolutions. So we recommend that go in again as a resolution from this district. questions?
I need an explanation.
Okay.
This is a resolution, we're not creating a policy for our district, this is a resolution to get it passed in the legislature?
Yes, we will have 2 delegates that will go to the Wyoming School Board conventions on the convention? On the 15th of November and present these to a delegate assembly. Then Wyoming School Boards will either adopt it or not adopt it, and if they adopt it, this will be the platform that they push to the Wyoming legislature.
And what is current, what's happening right now?
Basically, it's age 7, like I read. So the only thing it does is it makes, if they enroll their student in 1st grade and they turn 7 after September 15th during that school year, they're still required under compulsory attendance and our attendance policy. In other words, 10 would be a chronically absent student, above 20 would be a severe chronically student. In other words, we could support the student with our regular policy. Right now, we can't if they turn 7 during the 1st grade year. It makes no sense to me, but that's what the statute is. So in other words, it requires 1st grade. 1st grade's required.
Okay, next, Ryan, reduce the size of the board from 9 to 7.
There's one more resolution. There were
Oh,
2 that we'll propose to take to the
Oh, what's the next one then?
Wyoming School Boards. And the next one deals with habitually truant.
Oh.
This is another one that we approved last year, never made it before. It's not I don't know why it's not a more popular thing. Habitually truant deals with attendance. Habitually truant student, I'll just read the proposal. Whereas the current definition of the habitually truant student is based on 5 or more unexcused absences in any one school year, 21-4-101, and whereas even excused absences result in students missing school, be it resolved that the Wyoming School Board Association supports a change to state policy 21-4-101 that identifies an habitually truant student as a student whose attendance is adversely affecting their academic performance and their academic preparation. So it took away the 5 unexcused absences and changed it to whose attendance is adversely affecting their academic performance and their academic preparation. The reason for that is we don't have any unexcused absences. Parents can excuse all absences. So we never have an habitually truant student. And even 5 absences, it may adversely affect their attendance greater than that. So that's why we want to change the law. So when attendance is affecting their academic performance, instead of just a certain number of days. We recommend that you move this forward to the Wyoming School Boards also. Delegates.
So you want a motion on that?
Yeah,
So
motion
do
on
you
those
make a-
2, unless,
So you wanna
so
move-
that's the WSBA.
So you want to make a move to approve the resolution as presented by
so they'd be Wyoming School Board resolution proposals. So I'll just make a recommendation. The board approves the 2 Wyoming School Board proposals as I just read.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the Wyoming School Board resolutions as proposed?
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the Wyoming School Board resolutions that Mr. Thomas has presented.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next, to reduce the size of the board from 9 to 7.
Madam Chair, Jeff has put a resolution together. Would you just like me to read it?
Mhm.
Resolution of Uinta County School District Number 1. A resolution approving the reduction in the number of total members of the board of trustees of Uinta County School District Number 1, hereinafter the board, from 9 members to 7 members, and authorizing the implementation and execution of this change. Whereas the board has consisted of 9 members elected at large within the school district boundaries since December 16, 1997, and whereas the board has discussed this matter thoroughly during regularly scheduled board meetings, open to the public on date, whereas the board has requested and received comments from the general public relating to this resolution, and whereas thereupon a vote was taken on the above and foregoing resolution on a date and was counted and found to be as follows. So then it just is a listing of the votes. So that is the resolution that Jeff created. Jeff, comment?
There's more to the resolution.
Down at the bottom?
Yeah.
Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Uinta County School District Number 1 as follows. Commencing the first day of December 2018, the Board of Trustees of Uinta County School District Number 1 shall consist of 7 members. The superintendent and board attorney are hereby authorized and directed to facilitate the reduction in the number of board members within the Uinta County clerk in accordance with Wyoming law. The Uinta County clerk will be instructed to reduce the number of board member positions open for election in the November 2018 election from 5 to 3. 2 elected board members' positions will be eliminated from the November 2018 election. Every four-year term following the November 2018 election shall designate 3 open positions to be elected to the board. The November 2020 election and every four-year term following the November 2020 election shall be designated 4 open positions to be elected to the board. For example, the November 2022 election shall designate 3 open board positions, and the November 2024 election shall designate 4 open board positions. The superintendent and board, this is number 3, the superintendent and board attorney are hereby authorized and directed to modify the board policies referencing the number of board members to comply with this resolution. The modifications of board policy shall be presented to the board for approval in accordance with board policy. The officers and officials of the Board of Trustees of Uinta County School District Number 1 are hereby authorized and directed to fulfill all necessary requirements to execute this resolution as written.
Good job.
That is it. So, in common lingo, 2018, we'd elect 3 instead of 5, and then every year after that, 2 years after that, we'd elect 4. 2 years after that, it's 3, so it maintains 7, just like we do 5 and 4. Right. Jeff has actually gone through the policy book and made changes to the policy that's directed to in our handbook. And there you have it.
This would have to take place by early May, according to the county clerk,
Of next year,
of next year.
so we got a little time.
So we have a little bit of time, but it's not something we want to sit on for too
No.
long. We would want to address it relatively quickly. I was also asked to prepare a resolution to go back to districts, but in looking at the logistics of that, it would require a population study, and then we would have to decide which board members would be at large and which would be part of a district. And because of all of those complicated issues, it didn't make much sense to try, excuse me, put together a template of a resolution to go back to districting. If that is something that the board is real serious about, then we would have to do a lot of groundwork to make that happen, even just to put together a proposed resolution.
Is that something that we would be responsible to do, or would the voting?
No, we would be responsible for that.
Okay, so let's go to the next one.
So we're going to continue discussion on this then,
Yes.
On the districting or?
on both?
Let me kind of tell you what I see as a timeline. We have more time than I thought. I thought it had to be January 1st. First thing we probably need to do is, as it talks in the resolution, is survey all of our staff and community
I think
members.
it's real important.
So what I thought we could do is put some survey questions together, and the board can review those at the next board meeting. If those are approved at the next board meeting, we put that survey out from basically the 10th until the end of October. Second to last week in October, we'd have a public meeting, invite the community, board members, and have a discussion, open discussion with the community, and review the survey results and the feedback we got from the community at the November 7th work session. It could be on the agenda to approve at the November 14th board meeting. More complicated than that resolution is, as Jeff mentioned, is the idea of redistricting, much more complicated. Looking back into the history, it was easier to make them at large than it would be to residency areas. It's much more complicated. Even to the point, again, what I read is it had to go to the voters. Did you see that?
I may not have gotten that far, but I didn't think it needed to go to the voters, I'd have to look.
So
It is complicated
the
though.
population studies before, when they moved to have at-large positions, they also looked at changing the residence areas, and they had to do a pretty detailed study of population. And at that time, there wasn't enough population in Hilliard and Alameda to do what was suggested. Now, I don't think that would be an issue. Again, that was back in '95, I think, when we changed that.
96.
96.
Oh, no, 97, sorry.
So it would be very interesting. What I think in terms of moving forward is after we go through this month and we get results of the survey, we have a parent community meeting, then we make the decision, do we continue to look at residence units? Is there enough interest on the board to do that? If it's an interest of one or two or three and not the interest of a majority, not that I don't mind Jeff getting to work, but it would be a great deal of effort. So that's what I suggest, is that work session
And I don't
in
know that
November,
it's-
talk about it some more,
The
and
study
we
of
can approve a
population
different
study.
resolution on the 14th,
Yeah.
if the board.
I mean, the districting thing.
Madam Chairman, my thoughts on the second part, my intent was never to do any redistricting because I know the process is a long process. My intent was to reduce the size of the board from 9 to 7. Another board member brought the second part up. I don't know about the rest of you, but I would like to stay focused on this resolution that we have, and I can't see any point in the other because it's sometimes very hard to get people from other areas to run for the board. As you well know, it's sometimes a pretty thankless job.
It seems like we did vote on reducing, or doing
The resolution.
the resolution,
Yeah.
and then that was almost an afterthought.
Yeah, just a discussion.
We didn't
thing,
vote on that. There wasn't a majority.
What I suggested is that Jeff provide two resolutions. As we got into it, we realized the complexity of the second resolution, and I think we want to get, I guess, a greater feeling of the board in terms of that's what you want to pursue. And so that would take a vote, which would be at a regular board meeting to vote if we move forward. Again, it was a valid request by a board member. We try to meet all the requests. Jeff and I had long discussion about the second resolution. We decided to bring it to you and talk about it. It would have been nice to have a few more board members, but we understand. So that's why I think we, especially now we have more time, we push it to either the next work session or the next regular board meeting, not in October.
Five's not looking too bad right now.
Could we maybe, vote on moving forward with the districting at our next, board meeting so we can get a feel of?
You mean, to see if we want a
Yeah.
resolution for
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I would just say
Okay.
vote on that.
I thought they all were work in progress studies, no, I didn't, I just I heard that Kirby had brought it up, but I didn't hear that anybody had made any voting or anything on it.
No.
It was just
Well,
a
we
matter of
didn't, we voted
discussion.
on the resolution for this.
To come up with
not
I don't think we voted, we just said we'll produce a resolution, and we said we can do two until we
Yeah.
got.
Just some drafts to look at, but it doesn't make sense to do
I would say
redistricting.
we just push that so far. I think the other resolution is gonna require
Yeah,
a lot of effort and
And-
talk, and let's just do one thing at a time here.
correct.
So that's my thought, but I'm only one of five.
I agree.
And we can bring it up again.
Okay.
Since this has come up several times.
So you got five agree, kind of gives you an idea of
Okay.
where we're at.
That's very fair.
That's why I look at it.
Thank you for working the action items around my schedule tonight.
Okay, next we have the Horizon High School trip request.
Hello. Okay. Madam Chairman and the board, we put this trip together twice before, and this is our third year, we're hoping to be able to take Horizon students. We have had the opportunity to show them what a four-year school looks like. And last year we were able to add WyoTech, and this year we have a student going to WyoTech. He's actually registered, and so I would really like to show him WyoTech if I can't do the University of Wyoming trip. I always go really cheap, and we stay at the KOA. Our neighbors at the KOA were very impressed with our students, and they made a point to come and tell us that they were they were shocked that a bus was there, so they were scared that there was going to be loud and noisy. And the students did very well with being polite, and they were consistently opening doors for other people as well when they were at the University of Wyoming. They were able to explore different careers such as energy, and so I have my seniors in a college and career class, so they will go with college and career standards. So in their class, they're doing their explorations on fields before we even step foot in the schools. And then afterwards, we have follow-up assessments in order for them to make connection to what they really want to do with their careers.
If I might, I think it's important for our students to experience UW, even if they don't actually go there right off the bat. We do afford them an equal opportunity at meeting the halfway scholarship requirements as part of the graduation requirements. And many of our students don't have the opportunity to get over there outside of school. And I think for them, they see those Hathaway scholarship requirements. We talk about them constantly, and to make a connection to UW, for some of them, it might not be something they pursue straight out of high school, but for many of them, eventually they'll end up, if they don't go to Western, they'll end up on a pathway that connects them somehow to UW. So it ends up being a pretty valuable experience for them. So I would ask that you help us with this and support it this year too.
And I get the pricing down to about $17 per student. So last year we were asking for 12 students. This year we're asking for 20. We only ended up with 9 going last year. So we'll see how many we can convince in going this year, because it's nerve-wracking for them to even do an overnight trip. So yeah.
So, what, all you were asking of us is transportation, is that what you're saying?
Basically, it's everything's laid out in here that it's an overnight trip, so it would be transportation, a couple meals. University of Wyoming pays for their lunch, and WyoTech will pay for the lunch on Friday will be from WyoTech, and the lunch on Saturday will be provided by University of Wyoming.
Overnight field trips are called.
Yeah.
Right. I know that, I'm just trying to think, I'm trying to
Oh.
think the bottom line is here.
Bottom line is like $300, I think. Yep, $383.
Okay.
Cost per student is $17.45.
And that includes transportation?
Transportation is reimbursable because of the standards that are met.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll approve this next board meeting.
Okay.
You're welcome to come, but you don't have to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the GASB 45 study.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the district offers post-employment benefits to some teachers who have, or not just teachers, it could be any employees that have been with the district a long time and they retire, but they retire prior to, let's say, age 65 when they're eligible for Medicare. That cost, if you were to turn to the audit on page 46, this year is estimated at $73,596. Now, that doesn't mean we make a check out to anyone. It just means that if we didn't have those post-employment benefits, our insurance would be less, they're estimating, by that amount. So every 2 years, it's required by us, required by law, as part of the audit for districts who have this other post-employment benefit, or sometimes it's called OPEB, to go out for a study. And we hire some actuaries that go and they do whatever they do. And then they send us the bill and they say, here's the number. And it's not cheap, but it's necessary. And so this year, we need to do a GASB 45 study. It's part of the audit. And so back when I first did this, we sent out 40 different RFPs. I contacted 40 different actuarial firms and got bids between $5,000 and $13,000. We went with the $5,000 one. And since 2008, they've been charging us the same amount. I contacted them again, and they said it's still $5,000. So, but we need to have board permission to have a GASB 45 study. And so if you give us permission at the next board meeting, I will move forward with it.
Sounds good,
Any
thanks.
questions?
Okay, next up, we have the NSBA conference, April 7th through the 9th.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we always bring this to you. We're getting to the point now where we need to have individuals that will be willing to register for this. The challenge is it's quite a ways off. It's April 7th to the 9th. Trustee Brackett has expressed an interest to attend, so we always budget enough for 3, basically, depending on where they go. And again, this is a national school board conference. It's very impressive. You'll have some really impressive keynote speakers. I just looked, it doesn't say who it is this year, but it's always top educators or top minds. And then any issue you can think about public education, you can go to workshops. So I do recommend that we at least send 3. It's part of the commitment to continue to improve and get fresh ideas for the board.
When do you need to have final numbers?
Registration opens the end of next week.
So we could wait till next Tuesday when we have hopefully more of a full board.
Just more of a heads up than anything, and Sherry will send out another reminder.
Okay.
So who's going? Are you going? Are you gonna take us?
depends.
I mean, somebody's gotta do
Yeah,
that.
if 3 go, I'll go, or one of the other supers.
Yeah, I just wonder.
Did you want to go, Dave?
Well, maybe Mr. Thomas is, maybe. We seem to have the same taste.
Okay. All right, the Rocky Mountain Power Watt Smart.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I am not probably going to do this the justice that it deserves, but I'm going to try. Jaron is on district duty, so he's not here today, and either is John Davis. So they asked me to cover this. Several months ago, we were approached by Pacific Rocky Mountain Tower, and they did an audit of our facilities. And you should have some handouts. You can see that they looked at this facility, 4 elementaries, bus barn, I believe, and they identified that they have a program in place that they can replace the fluorescent bulbs with LED. And the significant part of the cost comes from incentives they receive. So it's really, for our guys, it's kind of a no-brainer. We get a lot of work done, not by our people, it's by Rocky Mountain Power. We save probably 75% of the cost to replace these bulbs, and we no longer have to deal with fluorescent lights, you'll get LED. We do pay a certain percentage, and you can see it's about between $1,100 and $1,300 per building. That comes out of major maintenance. It is a maintenance item, so it makes sense. So it doesn't cost the general fund anything, but it is a significant contract, which requires board approval. So what I would suggest is write your questions down, and Jared and John will be here next week to answer them for you. But it's pretty impressive what we get for the amount of money we put into it. We've done this before. This isn't like the train agreement where we do this over 10 years and it costs us a certain amount of money, we're guaranteed. This is basically services provided and equipment. And it's done when it's done. They'll work with our schedule, and I say that, there'll still be some disruption. They just have to. They can't do it all when there's not kids there, and they'll leave little cuttings on the floor until we get near the floor. But they are pretty good. They are experts. It does include the bulbs and ballasts. That's why we can use major methods.
Okay.
So what's the cost for the whole district? Do you have that? I didn't see that in any.
I think it's not tallied, but each one of those
So you
has.
add up each one of those?
Yeah,
Okay.
So each
and
one-
we can have that for
So
you.
it's-
It is above 10,000, that's why we're bringing it to 12. About 12?
Yeah.
Again, major maintenance
Yeah,
money, but
probably
still it's a
close to 12.
contract.
So major maintenance will cover it?
Yep.
It's a no-brainer.
It is, they do the work on our schedule.
Yeah.
Sounds better, too good to be true. It is.
It is.
Okay, next up, the physical therapy contract extension.
I think you have that now. I apologize.
Oh, there it is.
Share's good. All right, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board. You have before you a contract with Wyoming Specialized Physical Therapy. It's one that we've had since 2014, I believe. Dr. Chiquetta brought the contract to us this year, noting that there were changes in things that were in the original contract that he no longer provides. For example, concussion testing we now do at the schools. Our school nurses do that. And so I sat down with Dr. Chiquetta and went through and changed the things that he no longer does. So that the original contract was for $7,500 for the year, plus $3,500 to provide the concussion screening. And so what we did was we took $1,500 off of that. We made the total contract for $9,500, and all of that goes towards services for our student athletes. So as you can see in 2.1, 2.2 are probably the most important aspects of that. What Wyoming Specialized Physical Therapy does, student athlete gets injured in their sport, and then they can go to Dr. Chiquetta or the other physical therapist that works with him, and they actually get 2 visits. Doesn't cost anything. Those visits are actually billed to us at $100 a piece. And so each student athlete can have 2 visits per actual sport. So if a student accident prone gets hurt multiple times, they could actually get 6 visits, 2 in each sport that they participate in. So, and if they get injured, let's say it's a football player, they get injured on a Friday night, Dr. Chiquetta sees them there, they would still have the 2 visits. What he does at the games, and that is not part of that actual visits.
So is this opened up to the other PTs in the area?
We did not do a bid for this particular contract. It's my understanding that we do not.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the way I see this is this truly is an extension of services. We just wanted to make sure the contract was accurate. He does a good job. The coaches like him. He's there at the games. It just makes sense to extend the services.
Does he also attend the basketball games or is it just football that he's mainly?
He's there for all of the home football games, and then I think for our large events, I know for regionals and things like that, he's there for basketball. I do not believe he's there for all of the home games.
I think he's there for the EI.
Right, EI, I do know he's there for EI. So the really large events that we have, he is on location.
Okay.
But that's not actually even part of the contract itself.
Okay. All right. At the next.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up we have school reports. Don't be shy.
Good evening. Just like to report that as we took the FAST test in the fall, impressed with the scores for the math. As the kids took that math piece of it, we had majority of the kids in the tier 1, which is had a set cut rate that we had 80, some classes at 80%. None of the classes were less than a 65%. So that's, appreciate the fact that we have a curriculum or a math resource that the kids are doing well with, and they are learning math. I know that for parents, some of it's frustrating for parents, but the students are really starting to pick up math. And I had a math teacher today tell me, wow, I understand math so much better now than I have ever in my teaching career, and she's been teaching almost 30 years. So she's learned more in these last 3 years that she's been teaching it. So that's a great resource that we have. So just want to say thanks for that.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So I just am happy to report it's been another great month at Clark Elementary. Our work with professional learning communities is moving along really well. Teachers are excited about the work, and in some grade levels, I'm having to hold them back a little bit because they want to just take it all on. So it's been really exciting to see that. I can't say enough how much I appreciate working with the staff, students, and families at Clark. We have big plans for this month. We have our Mini Olympics on October 3rd. It's our second annual Mini Olympics, and we're super excited about that. And then we are also trying a new PTA Fall Festival on October 25th. So that's going to be a fun family event. So, yep, just another great month.
All right, thanks.
Well, when there's only 4 of you, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to start with Madam Chair and members of the board or not. But, in lieu, anyway, keeping it really light, we just had our walkathon, our big school fundraiser, and it was just a load of fun for the kids. Superhero theme. It's our 6th annual. Raised, I think, close to $8,000, and so that's good for our school. That's, we like right around 10 or so, but anyway, we're doing well. They all came in superhero costumes and ran around the school. Our PTA is going strong. They just received for back-to-back years their PTA School in Excellence. So we just have a lot of parent support. So kind of like Kimber said at Clark, we just appreciate the support of our parents, of our kids. And Friday was our big walkathon assembly. So we announced who all the winners were and what the kids did, and the bounce house parties and all the things they get to look forward to. They got to silly string all their teachers in the face. Some teachers this year came prepared to silly string back. They were able to throw pies in my face, and some of the other rewards were me taking them to lunch and doing some different things. And we had our winners knew that I was going to take them to Park City to buy a brand new pair of shoes at Nike and take them to lunch. And I had a lot of kids see me in the hall, and I hope I'm the number 1 kid, and I hope that I get a new pair of shoes or whatever it was. But actually just had a letter on my desk today saying from the parents of those students that that was unnecessary, and they want the money to go to kids who are less fortunate than their kids, and they don't need the shoes. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing for one of our parents to do. So good things happening at UNM Meadows, a lot of fun. So anyway, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Just a quick update of Evanston High School. Our PLC groups are working well. I appreciate the staff a ton. They're working hard. Homecoming is over. It went well. It was a lot of fun. And then we have a Powder Puff football game on the 18th of October. So come to that. They're already practicing, and the girls are excited. So just heads up about that. So thank you.
Don't have to.